The Black Rose McQueen. I wanted to give a shout out to Ring IQ Boxing, and remember to tune in to the motherfucking relay.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay where we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, Frankie Sanchez, he has this to say. He says he wants Joseph Parker next. Would win every round against him. I'm happy to step in for Junior Fa and fight Joe Parker. I won't price myself out because I know I will win. No disrespect to Parker, but I would win every round of the fight and he would not lay a glove on me. I want to prove I'm the best heavyweight in the world, and I have targeted the WBO championship, said Sanchez, who is trained by Eddie Reynoso. It's the same Eddie Reynoso that trains both Oscar Valdez, Ryan Garcia, and Canelo Alvarez. I am ready to fight anyone and prove I am the best. A win over Joe Parker would put me in line for a world title fight, and that's all that interests me. David Higgins was taken aback by Junior Fa's financial demands, especially since the sum was more than Parker would have earned for their fight. We're talking about 10 to 20 times his biggest price ever, Higgins told Sky Sports last week. Parker would have been willing to fight for less than Fa requested, and Parker is a former world champion. That's called pricing yourself out. Fa was looking for far too much for where they're at. I guess it's a mark of respect for Joseph Parker. They're worried of what would happen, frankly. Now just back to Frankie Sanchez, who says he's willing to stand in for Junior Fa if he can get Parker without any exorbitant financial demands. This guy stands in at about 6'4", 78-inch wingspan, good dimensions for a heavyweight these days. And this guy, he's not a lumbering lummox, this guy, you know? He's not some slow, flat-footed plotter. He ain't one of those. He's not your Kojanu, he's not your Dimitrenko, he's not one of those. This guy, for the most part, he's got a little bit of quickness, a little bit of movement. Decent-sized guy, nimble guy, Cuban guy. 27 years old.
27 years old?
That guy don't look 27 years old.
This guy's 27 years old the same way that Felix Valera's 32 years old. You know what I mean. And what's that story you often hear about Cuban defectors and their age?
They lie about it.
Yeah, that's the one. It's a big part of the reason that nobody believes Luis Ortiz is 41 years old. It's widely speculated that he is older than that. Him, Guillermo Rigondeaux.
Them too.
And I think that's the case here when it comes to Frankie Sanchez. I mean, he might be registered as 27 years old, but you know what? It's the oldest fucking 27-year-old I've ever seen.
Really? The oldest?
Well, maybe not the oldest, but this guy don't look 27. This guy don't look a day over 32.
Sounds about right.
I mean, if he's 27 years old, it's been a hard 27 fucking years.
Hey, they say he's 27.
Make of that what you will, but reiterate, Frankie Sanchez is willing to stand in for Junior Fa without any exorbitant financial demands, because as far as Frank is concerned, he knows he wins that fight, and he knows what's on the other side of such a fight with Joseph Parker. I want to say I like the energy from Frank Sanchez. That's the attitude you gotta have when you want to make a statement. You gotta be willing to make sacrifices, assuming they even are sacrifices.
Yeah.
For two undefeated guys like Junior Fa and Frankie Sanchez, it's not actually a sacrifice.
Because what are you giving up?
What are either Junior Fa, Frankie Sanchez giving up by fighting Joseph Parker when these guys fight on a regular basis for less money than they get fighting Joseph Parker? What are you actually giving up?
What are you sacrificing?
I mean, if you take on fights on a regular basis for less money than you'd make fighting him, then what are you actually sacrificing?
Your undefeated record?
Well, that's just it. Frank Sanchez isn't acting like that. Frank Sanchez doesn't act like he's sacrificing his own. He's sacrificing his undefeated record. As far as Frank is concerned, that's a fight that he wins, and that's a fight that he wins easy. That Joseph Parker will go the whole fight and won't lay a glove on Frank. That's how Frank feels about it. Whereas for Junior, he's doing the risks versus rewards thing already. And Junior, he hasn't even fought anybody. He hasn't fought a Duampas, hasn't fought a Molina, a Hellenius. Nobody like that. But he's already doing the risks versus rewards shtick. And what that is indicative of is the fighter's headspace. That from where Frank is sitting, there's no sacrifice involved. Because as far as he's concerned, that's an easy fucking fight. Whereas with Junior and his handlers, they must view it as some kind of sacrifice because they won't take the fight on at all unless they get a certain amount of money, a certain amount of compensation for the risk they're taking. They view it as a risk to some degree, to some respect.
Looks like it.
In reality, reiterate, Junior Fa is in no position to haggle, alright? At this point, you need a Parker more than a Parker needs you because Parker's got more options than you. Junior Fa's people Their argument is that because Junior Fa's got an undefeated record that entitles him to 30%, well, Frank Sanchez has got an undefeated record, and Filip Hrgovic has got an undefeated record. I mean, you could spit in the wind and hit a guy that has an undefeated record. Ultimately, Junior Fa's quality of competition is no better than Frank's. His marquee value is no better than Frank's, but both guys are approaching this situation, this Parker situation, with very different attitudes, very different demeanors. That Frank, he's willing to bite the bullet because he's confident he wins the fight. Whereas what Junior and his people are communicating, oh, it's not
that confident
equal to Frank's confidence. I like the energy from Frank Sanchez, but in truth, I'm not expecting such a fight between Joseph and Frank to come off. I don't think that fight happens. I don't. Frank Sanchez, for all intents and purposes, is a PBC guy. Those are the cards that he's been fighting on, and that being said, I'm not sure that he's the likeliest candidate to land a Joseph Parker fight. Frank's got a pro record of 15-0, 15 wins.
No losses.
11 knockouts. His resume looks like what you expect a guy who's 15-0's resume to look like, you know?
Yeah, no.
He does show promise, though, but it's very early. I mean, you know, Frank shows some speed in those hands, some power, some pop, some agility in those legs, but he does seem a bit vulnerable, a bit reckless, I dare say, in the heat of an exchange, that you can get away with hooking off the way he was hooking off against Victor Bisbal. Came out guns blazing in that fight, very aggressive, showing different levels, coming in at a slight crouch, hooking off, you know, showing a lot of different things that he can do.
Good stuff.
But, you know, against the Bisbal, you can afford to be that overzealous. It's when you climb up those ranks, when you approach that upper echelon, that you really find out what a guy's made of. And right now, I don't really know what Frank Sanchez is made of. Is he actually ready for the likes of a Joseph Parker? That's a story only time will tell, and sadly, I don't think he's going to get that fight. Whoever Frank is going to prove himself against, it's likely going to be somebody on the PBC side of things, maybe a Dominic Breazeale or an Adam Kovnowski or somebody like that, because as it stands, the most familiar name on Frank's resume is Joey DeVaco. Frank hasn't given a guy like Parker any reason to look in his direction. At least not yet. Parker has bigger fish to fry. I don't expect that fight to come off, so while I do like the energy from Frank Sanchez, I have no illusions about what's going to happen. Rather, what's not going to happen. I'm not expecting to see Parker versus Sanchez once boxing resumes.
So I'll tell you this, I will never lose to a white boy in my life. I don't care what nobody got to say. Listen, can't no white boy beat me on any day of the week.
Hey, talk that shit, Dan.
Fight a white boy 10 times, I'm going to beat him 10 times.
Well, so you can imagine this kind of comment has some people out there in the boxing cosmos in a bit of an uproar. Devin Haney made it clear that he has no intention of losing to any Caucasian fighter that he comes up against.
Well, all right.
I'm not up in arms about this kind of comment.
Don't care.
I'm not. I'm surprised that Devin made it, though, given that, you know, this kind of comment didn't age well for Bernard Hopkins, now did it?
I would never let a white boy beat me. I would never let a white boy beat me.
He landed a good right hand on the ear right there, and landed another good right hand as Hopkins was trying to do the same.
I would never let a white boy beat me.
Beating Hopkins at his own game.
You know, he got beat by Slappy Joe, and then he got knocked out of the ring by Joe Construction Waker. I guess Bernard, he thought he was in there with a cab driver, and he ended up with a construction waker in front of him.
Two possible opponents.
Big right hand. He's out. Out ring.
Oh my gosh.
That's
Joe
crazy.
Smith, who Dan Rayfield suggested as an opponent, has just knocked Bernard Hopkins out of the ring.
Found out the difference.
The hard way.
Tell you what, the most this comment actually leaves me to reflect upon is that regardless of how Devin feels, losing to one guy from one race as opposed to another guy from some other races, that perhaps he should keep those kinds of sentiments to himself, because in the sport of boxing, you are attempting to sell yourself to the masses. You want as many people watching your fights, driving up TV ratings and buying tickets to be in attendance and ultimately purchasing what could be your pay-per-views if you have some intention of becoming a pay-per-view star. You want as many people of as many different denominations doing this as possible, because ultimately, this is what drives up your marquee value.
They do.
Your ability to sell yourself as a fighter and ultimately have things your way, where you are dictating the terms. And this kind of comment it can be perceived as alienating certain people of a certain denomination. Because they're going to look at it and they're going to think to themselves, what if it wasn't Devin Haney saying this? What if it was Luke Campbell saying this about Devin Haney or someone of the same race as Devin Haney?
What if Luke said that?
What would people call a guy like Luke Campbell if he got on camera, said this kind of comment about certain individuals of a certain race or a certain region? They'd probably call him a bigot and a racist.
They would.
But because it's Devin Haney, we're supposed to act different? Look, there are already going to be people out there that feel that there is a difference, that Devin Haney is entitled to make these kinds of comments. In truth, it doesn't matter what you think and it doesn't matter what I think, because ultimately Devin already said what he said.
Yep.
And people are going to think what they're going to think. Ultimately, the damage is done. And you really can't take it back. Only saving grace now is that hopefully this comment won't age for you the way it aged for Bernard Hopkins. If there's a silver lining here now, it's that the same people,
the critics,
were saying that Devin Haney is a paper champion and that he hasn't fought anybody and that he doesn't deserve a Vasyl Lomachenko fight. Those same people are now the people that are going to want to see Devin Haney in there with Vasyl Lomachenko so that Vasyl can make him eat those words. Essentially, some form or some fashion, this kind of a polarizing comment is going to create a demand that wasn't really there before. When Devin Haney was calling Vasyl Lomachenko out and he tried to become his mandatory challenger, there wasn't really a demand for Devin to actually get the fight. Quite the opposite. There were people out there that didn't think he deserved it, in spite of him going through the proper channels. I wasn't one of these people. I felt that Devin Haney went through the proper channels the same way that Anthony Crolla went to the proper channels, and that in Vasyl Lomachenko
franchise
being named the franchise champion, he effectively put the kibosh on Devin Haney's title shot. That's what I felt about it. I didn't take any issue with Devin calling Vasyl Lomachenko out. If anything, I commended him for it because he showed more moxie than Gervonta Davis has shown for the last 3 years. Wasn't against Devin calling out Vasyl Lomachenko. It wasn't against him pursuing that fight. I thought, you know what? This kid's all right. Win or lose. But there were those out there who were against such a proposition, and they were very critical of Devin Haney, even though him becoming a champion of any kind wasn't as a direct result of anything he did. All he wanted was the shot that Gervonta Davis didn't want.
And there were critics. There were criticisms.
It's almost like all those guys didn't want Devin to get the fight, whereas now, in light of these recent comments, racially fueled, polarizing comments, now it's those same guys that are going to want Devin to get the fight so that Vasyl Lomachenko can go in there and embarrass him the way that he embarrassed Guillermo Rigondeaux. That's the silver lining, that maybe this will lend itself to Devin Haney's notoriety.
Yeah, no way.
It might. For all the wrong reasons, but better still. It might. That if anything comes out of this, now he's going to be under the microscope, for better or worse. People are going to start expecting a lot of him.
A lot more.
There are going to be those out there who are waiting for his downfall. But in the sport of boxing,
polarization,
being a polarizing figure that makes polarizing comments, well, in some ways it can lend itself to a fighter's marquee value, albeit for the wrong reasons. You don't want to be hated, do you? We all know playing the heel is one way to sell a fight, and while you might not be anybody's sweetheart, does help to sell tickets now, doesn't it? Essentially, this is a situation where you gotta say, Devin Haney, as young as he is, he made his bed, and he's gonna have to lie in it. That really is the most concise way to put it. It's causality. But you and who you'd prefer kick your ass, or who you'd not prefer to kick your ass, really is your business, but you went as far as making it public, and that exposes certain of your most visceral feelings, your demeanor towards certain individuals. And those individuals, well, they're not going to receive these comments very kindly. So, moving forward, while these polarizing kind of statements might lend themselves to drawing Devin Haney's matches more attention, don't be surprised if a good chunk of it is negative attention.
It will be.
You don't gotta wonder what it is about Devin that some individuals don't like. And if there were already individuals who didn't like Devin for some reason, one reason or another, there are going to be that many more of those individuals, as he has just given them the ammunition, the reason to not like him. It's causality. I mean, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, but that's what it is. Especially these days, this generation, where most everyone is looking for something to be angry about, something to take offense with. This kind of talk. So do it. Natural assumption in a sport as competitive as boxing is that you're not in the business of losing. Doesn't matter who it's to, you don't go in there to lose. Period. But Devin Haney has decided to make it a lot more particular, a lot more specific, and in light of these comments, they're going to spark the curiosity of those who hear them, and they're going to think to themselves, well, Devin Haney shouldn't be concerned with who he loses to. If anything, he shouldn't be concerned with losing. But now, as a result of these comments moving forward, a fight like Haney versus Campbell, for example, is going to have a different air to it. Certain themes have now been injected to just such a fight as a result of what Devin Haney stated. From here on out, if Devin Haney, moving forward, should find that the man opposite the ring of him just so happens to be a Caucasian, this is going to become a recurring theme. Thus, every match he has thereafter, moving forward, becomes polarized as a result of these comments. These kind of comments that don't go away, especially these days where sound bites and video is made readily available.
Retweeted.
Via social media.
Uploaded.
And posted. It's the kind of thing that comes back to haunt you. It's the kind of thing that's not going to go away, especially not now when everybody's looking to be offended by something. No.
Damage is done.
So you'll understand what I mean, that this may lend itself to get Devin Haney's matches more attention moving forward, but a good chunk of it is going to be negative attention. Negative attention aimed at him. Devin's a young guy. And he's not the first young guy to have a bit of a froward tongue, you know? That perhaps it would have been better if he didn't say these things. Oh, he can feel them. He can feel them all fucking day. But saying them, well, that comes with consequences.
Saying it to the public.
And he can't play the victim for what adverse effect these comments have moving forward. And rest assured, they will. Imagine if Manny Pacquiao said these things about an Adrian Broner.
Yeah.
Imagine if Luke Campbell said these things about an Ivan Mendy.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was Vasyl Lomachenko saying these things about a Nicholas Walters or Guillermo Rigondeaux. You know, just imagine what the headlines would be. Would you let any one of them get away with those kinds of comments?
Would you be okay with it?
Chances are you wouldn't. So go crying me a river that Devin Haney has so decided to ruffle some feathers. Made his bed, he's got to lie in it.